This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
Welcome in, everybody, to this week's episode of Doc and Jock. I am the Doc, John Macaroon. Joining me in studio, my guy Adam, the Jock Strozinski. Survived the 4th of July. We didn't blow up our cars like we saw in some online videos that have gone viral. Luckily, I don't think Adam and I are sitting there going out there and lighting off fireworks out there in the streets, in the mean streets on the east side here in Metro Detroit.
Well, hold on. Are you a fan of fireworks?
I am a fan, of course.
You are?
Yes,
You like them?
loud booms, but I have never gone out there and put a mortar into a container and lit it off. Hell no, because you fuck up one time and you got JPP all over the place, and I need my hands to handle business.
JPP all over the place.
Yeah, I ain't trying to do that. That scared me, and I was scared straight, so I'm not doing it, but I know a lot of people
Fingers
that love it.
Look like burnt hot dogs just all over the place.
Oh, Sports Illustrated did an in-depth feature, and so Tracy Walker, the Lions safety, he made news because he went out and bought $13,000 worth of fireworks, and everybody freaked out. So I looked at that, and everyone was like, remember JPP? So you Google JPP, and you saw this in-depth Sports Illustrated feature with like 10 photos, and it was raw right after the fact. I'm like, boy, why did I go down this rabbit hole? So no, I avoid it, try to be safe at all costs in regards to fireworks, because I don't know if you saw that video that circulated on Twitter. It just started off innocuously with people hanging out, chilling, like you always see, and some people are lighting off fireworks, and then it explodes. It hits a car, and then just blows up all over the place. And I'm like, oh, hell no. I don't want to be seeing my kids running or hurting anybody. I would freak out if I did shit like that. So I just sit back, sit in a chair, watch the entire neighborhood blow up. And I don't have pets, so I don't get hypersensitive to the noise. They can do it at 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock. I have no problem with fireworks. So it's not for me and not something I want to be involved in, because, as you know, things go left quickly nowadays in the world. And I don't want that to be a mistake I make. Hey, just one manufacturer's error. Hey, you light it and the wick just goes buff right away. You're like, oh, hell no. I'm not trying to count on anybody in terms of their manufacturing of the firework that I have a level of trust to do it. So hell no. I survived it, had a great weekend. It was very fun. The weather cooperated, hung out in the backyard, and just had as many cocktails as humanly possible within reason. You, what'd you do?
I got into an argument with a concrete guy who was putting a patio in for us. We just got our patio redone. I've been working on the patio basically nonstop all weekend, and that's been pretty much it. Once we get done recording, going to go home, going to try to put some finishing touches on. I got a gazebo coming in here shortly. I've got to build. Sounds like I'm going to need help, so I'm going to be like calling on a couple of people to come through and help me put a roof on this massive gazebo. But just kind of putting the finishing touches on a brand new patio. But
Man,
it was interesting.
Listen, as you've seen recently on our Twitter page at Detroit Podcast, if you saw, there was a poker flop with two of the same card, which is the hugest no-no in the history of poker, where you can't have the three of spades show up twice and a flop. And it's just kind of the way of the world. You pay people to do stuff, and they do subpar work, but in the end, it always ends up right. It's just along the way, the craftsmanship that you would put in or I would put in is not there. And I'm going through it similarly with work around the house. But in the end, you realize just patience, it's going to get done. Things will work itself out. This is the way of the world. When you have young people come in and they just show up, they're doing a job, they're not passionate, and they're like, oh, sorry, I dropped your molding. What does that mean? Well, I was putting it up and it hit the floor. I'm like, oh, how does that happen? I don't know. It just happened. So another week delay for people to come in. You're just like, okay, I brace for this, but then when you go through it, it's just...
It sucks.
Walk away, John.
It's not fun.
Away. It's not fun, but you realize everything's under warranty. You get what you pay for, and when things happen, it's just you have to look at the silver linings. That's the life that you have to live in 2022. What are the silver linings? What's going to happen? Okay, you expect the project to take a month and a half. Okay, realistically, that means 2.5 to 3.5 months in 2022. So yeah, we're being patient, and good luck in the construction business, because I can't wait to hear how it actually turns out, because it is funny. It's the way of the world, man. It is. And especially too, you can't get the help, you can't get quality work, and then the funniest part is when the people that come in and supervise go, they did this and they did that, and you're like, yeah, exactly. You hired them, you brought them here. They're part of, unfortunately, you can't pass the buck. You guys are the ones that did it.
See, like a lot of times in a situation like what you're going through, it's like general labor, right? Yes. You hire basically somebody who's they're on their summer break. It's a kid who's probably 16, 17, 18, might be 19, might be deciding if he's dropping out of college and he wants to do this for the rest of. You have no idea, right? Like there are things going on with whoever's doing the work. You bring in the supervisor. Supervisor's been here now, done this. This is his career. He's been doing it for 10 plus years. Knows what the hell he's doing. Knows what it should look like. And for some reason, that knowledge, that transfer, didn't get to the general laborer who, like you said, put your molding up, and molding's falling down. Like, it's a good thing it didn't hit one of the kids because then we have a big issue.
Yeah, exactly. No, it was in. It's funny because it was in the route of being put up. So he puts it up and he's like, oh, bloop, dropped it. I'm like, okay, what are we going to hear next? Basically, he broke something on the job.
Yeah.
And he just calls it in and is like, okay, it's no rush. So he put it up, broke it, and then 9 days later, because of the holiday, now we'll address it as we're recording this podcast.
Now you get it.
Now we get it, exactly. So that's the way it goes, is that I should have known real quickly. So to let you guys in, redid the kitchen. It's basically done, but the craftsmanship is terrible. So what is going to happen is that we're going to go through it and look through all the nicks and crannies and get it fixed. Switching project manager, I think, to a woman is going to be great because I think that this person will care, and working with my wife, there'll be a little bit more TLC in the situation. But they had planned, and it was crazy, because they had planned 3 days for the demo. It took them 4 hours. So I knew that was something crazy was going to happen when they started the job on a Monday, didn't come back till Thursday. And they were like, oh, we planned 3 days out. We planned 3 days for this demo. And I'm like, oh, God. And so the job really could have been done in 2 weeks if they just spent 8 hours a day, Monday through Saturday, come in, do it, knock it out. But, just hearing that they just book so many jobs and they kind of patchwork it all the way through, they give themselves so much time, you're like, I would not do it this way. I just would handle it kind of in a way that's more professional. But this is what happens when you have capitalism. People just trying to spread themselves thin and do 10 jobs, give 40% effort across 10 jobs instead of 80% effort across 3.
Yep.
But that's how it goes. To test the patience, really, in life nowadays, is to realize that you tell someone something and then it just comes back in a different way. So good luck. I can't wait to hear how it turns out for you. Can't wait to hang out in that gazebo as we watch wrestling or other stuff. So good luck in the pursuit of finding good help and people who will listen. So now, cuz in the world of sports, lots has happened. We are now.
Have there been things that have been going on?
Craziness in the world of sports. And I think it's crazy, too, at this point in the podcast where we are living through a shift in college football. We talked about it, the evolution, and we've speculated, hey, maybe the landscape of college football should evolve into maybe super conferences. But to see the Big Ten make the first move and poach.
Be the leader in it.
Be the leader in it.
Which is crazy because normally it's the SEC basically carrying the banner and doing all the things.
Now, in that they've kind of poached 2 big schools, but there's been rumblings of universities switching alliances. And I think that should have signaled that, there's something happening here. And the Big Ten took the big swing. And for those that don't know, UCLA and USC are joining the Big Ten. And I think when you saw that, you're like, whoa, that kind of doesn't align with exactly the East where most of the schools are in the Big Ten. But when you realize, oh my goodness, teams in the Pac-12 and teams across universities across college football are looking at the potential rumors and speculated big-time billion-dollar TV deal, and they're like, wait a minute, Rutgers gets that much? And we're Clemson and we get this much? Wait a minute, let's join up. And to have those conversations in the absence of a regulated system, this is what happens. People jump. And in the end, it always boils down to this. Money talks and bullshit walks. And the Big Ten is saying, hey, we want to be at the forefront of having a conference that people want to watch. And when you have a Big Ten and you're looking at selling a TV deal, you could have maybe made $500 more million in the TV deal by saying, hey, look, we got this perennial team out here that potentially now with Lincoln Riley and what's going on and some rivalries you could create, hey, this could be also at the very beginning of something. So I was just curious, what'd you think when you first heard that? And does this mean that maybe we're starting to potentially creep closer to Notre Dame joining the Big Ten? Because I think that would be the big fish, and that would send the biggest shockwaves reverberating around the sports world.
I think at this point you throw geography out the window, right? Like geography no longer matters. And that was kind of cemented when you brought in Rutgers, you brought in Maryland, and you could make a bit of an argument that there's still geographically relevant to everything that was going on in the Big Ten. But then you go and you add Nebraska, and there's like really no relevance there. I don't care how hard you try to compare Iowa and Nebraska as far as geographical relevance. There's just none there. But you go out and you grab UCLA, you grab USC. At this point, let's not even pretend anymore. It's all about buying TV markets so you can inflate whatever it is that your TV deal is going to get. And if that's the case, if this is the route we're going to go, I'm not sure why you're stopping at 2 teams. At this point, I think you have to hold a gun to Notre Dame's head and you say, you need to make a choice. This is where we're at. And I think you have to go out and you need to identify 4 other schools. Like, I have a wish list. I think you get this to 20. At this point, you're at 14. You're about to go to 16. You need to add 4 more schools. Get this to 20, and then you can figure out how you want to organize your conferences. And it's grabbing teams, because now what happens is you have the ability to go out and grab teams that have rivalries with other schools, right? So, like, Penn State and Pitt have a rivalry. Go grab Pitt. That makes sense, right? Like, for the Big Ten, that makes sense. Go grab them. Oregon's a school that I would love for the Big Ten to get. Oregon would be great. I love their jerseys. I love their basketball floor. It all makes sense. Go grab Oregon. Like, just go get them, okay? And you're right. Notre Dame's that team where, look, we're going to hold a spot for you, but we're only holding a spot for you for a week. We need a decision by the end of the week. Shit or get off the pot, because we're not waiting for you anymore. So I think my wish list, right, to help tie in these 2 new schools that are coming over to the Big Ten. I want Oregon. I want Pitt. I think Stanford would be a nice fit. And that's just more academic. Like, Big Ten has this whole thing with academics. I think Stanford would be a nice fit. And you're just kind of tying up a lot of different parts of California, right? So you already have the LA market. Now you're basically tying up the, San Palette, whatever. I can't even say it right. You're basically just tying up parts of California. And then with Oregon, you're now moving into that Washington, like the state of Washington. You know, I mean, there's another school you can go get. You can go get Washington. So if Notre Dame basically says, hey, no, we're good. Washington's already asked about coming over to the Big Ten. Go get the Seattle market. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's a huge market. If you ever look at radio and television markets, Seattle's a massive market. Go grab them. Go get them. It only makes sense. And you know what that does? When you go to the bargaining table for your television contract, it just boosts those numbers. At some point, how do you see this playing out? Because right now, like I said, we're at 14 teams, about to go to 16. I think we need to be to 20. By 2024, we should be at 20 teams. At some point, I see us having a conference with at least 24 teams.
I think natural rivalries should be in the mix too. So if you get Notre Dame, maybe you align with Boston College, Oregon, Washington, and then try to find a couple other schools. Because here's the problem too. There is a little bit of skepticism because of the fact you added Maryland, you added Rutgers. Mm-hmm. And in regards to football, they haven't added much. And they're still reaping the rewards of all the benefits of being part of the Big Ten. So I'm hoping they go big. So I'm talking about find the big schools, and that might include Clemson.
I was going to say, do you go after the ACC schools now? Like, so
yeah.
You go after a Duke, you go after North Carolina. That just strengthens your basketball programs.
Yeah.
Doesn't really do too much for football, but strengthens basketball. And then you could add a school like Clemson. Then that helps strengthen your football.
It's hard to get that dual mix of a school that can get both, like Carolina. Yeah. You know, they're kind of right in the middle there. But hey, if you can get 20 schools, I think obviously this will send shockwaves. And here's the thought I had too. And I know it's harder too because obviously the deals would be difficult to work through in contracts. So you know how there's NIL and there's the opportunity to jump around like a transfer portal. So obviously being a Spartan supporter, my thought was, man, if you're Michigan State, why not just sell yourself and say, you know what? Hey, we're a marquee franchise. We're a marquee university. We're open for sale. If you want to give us this much money in the Big Ten, hey, we'll join the Pac-12 if you give us this. And if you could do it like every 2 years, now you could have also a revolving situation where universities are also like the athletes where you jump around, but they get locked in probably longer.
Say, yeah, the way the contracts go they
get locked in like decades. I know
with the conferences. Like I know, like there's been talk about Georgia Tech, right? And Georgia Tech they basically have this buyout clause where it would cost a fortune to get Georgia Tech to the Big Ten.
Yes.
So, I don't know if that's going to happen. I don't see that happening just because it'll cost the Big Ten so much money.
Exactly. But that's what I'm saying is that you can think of so many ways this could go in regards to universities, because then you say, okay, you might have the Power Four, but what about the landscape of the other teams? Mm-hmm. What do? Do they start to align and form, maybe not the Big Four, but something of the rest of us kind of thing? And you realize, too, that you got to follow the money. And in regards to this, you realize it's probably going to be the SEC and the Big Ten leading the way. And then you got to realize, okay, what's going to happen next? Who are the other schools? It's just exciting. It's exciting, I think, because it's going to represent newness. I think Michigan and USC playing in the Rose Bowl in a fall night is going to be amazing to see. And I think that also, too, with the cachet that the Big Ten also has in regards to some rivalries, I think it's great. I don't see any problem with having a couple of California schools. Travel is much more streamlined nowadays. I think that 2024 is going to get here real quickly. I can't wait to see the changing landscape. But you have to ask now, should college football as an entity respond to this and put forth some regulation to say, okay, we're going to cap it at 16 teams or 18 teams. Otherwise, it's going to be a free-for-all. And like you said, they could extend it out to the point where you have schools saying, hey, look, we'll join you, but only for 3-4 years, and then just become free agents every 3-4 years. So I think you need a little bit of regulation, but not to the point where you stifle it. I think you just got to oversee it so that there's some level of fairness, because look at schools like TCU or other middle-of-the-road teams that could be there. They're going to get squeezed out if they're not involved in one of these four, because you've seen it. Teams that have good seasons but aren't in those marquee conferences, they get in, but they don't receive the necessary bids, especially in a 4-team college football playoff. You're kind of making it so that the winners of the 4 conferences play each other.
Yeah, and I was going to ask you if you thought this was good for the overall landscape of college football, and I think you've kind of set that up with your question here, is you now are going to have teams leaving conferences at a more regular pace. So there has to be some sort of regulation so you don't destabilize what is, I don't know. I think college football is great. And I think kind of the way it is with the conferences is fantastic. But now you're going to these super conferences, which I'm all for. I'm for the super conferences. I feel like we have too many conferences that lead to too many issues. I think put the best teams in, let the best teams fight, and let them figure it out.
Are there any drawbacks that we're not looking at here in regards to what the Big Ten has done? Are you marginalizing the real premise of the Big Ten and what they were?
So I think you have to change your perspective on what you have as far as conferences, right? So like the Big Ten is no more. The Big Ten isn't what the Big Ten was when we were kids growing up. It hasn't been that way in a long time. So it's just kind of the nature of the beast at this point. You have conferences that are now cannibalizing each other, and they're growing at a crazy pace. And it's because everybody now has their own television deals, and it's all, like you said, it's all just kind of follow the money. Let's see where it goes and what you get. So I'm all for having these massive conferences, right? I'm cool with it. I think the drawback for it is you do have smaller schools who aren't going to get the invite. So getting to see a school like TCU, maybe even BYU, and these are schools that maybe aren't perennial powers, but are schools that bubble up and they challenge some of the big guns, like a school like Utah. Utah is a great example. Utah had a great season last year in football, and when you think of schools that are powerhouses, Utah's not really one of them. But Utah was good enough last year to get into a New Year's Six Bowl and to really make some noise. So you're going to miss some of that because there's going to be no way when you've got 24 schools in a conference, or you've got 20, or you've got 16 in a conference. There's no way you can really give those other schools, those smaller schools that aren't in your major conferences, time. It's not feasible.
Okay, now before we hit on the big news of the week regarding the Red Wings and Chris Ilitch and a lot of the noise that was created, the bombs that were released when Chris Ilitch opened his mouth, I do got to ask you, because Michigan did come out and has started to do a little PR in defense of their NIL program. Everyone's been ragging on Michigan, saying, look, players, alumni, people are concerned, saying, hey, these dollars aren't flowing to the athletes in the right way as compared to the rest of college football. Now, Michigan came out and said, look, this isn't exactly reality. All these insiders saying that we're not doing this. Look, we got a program. We got it set up. We got these athletes being able to set up. We're doing it by the books. But we also were not going away from our tenet of education. And even though there is this world, there are still a lot of haters about Michigan's NIL. And I don't know if they're doing a good enough job of maybe just coming out there and saying, hey, this guy's getting this much money and doing it in that regard. But Michigan's come out and said our NIL program is not the reason why we are not getting the baddest recruits. But I'll tell you this, I don't know how much you've heard or definitely I'm aware of all the panic in sports. Everywhere there's panic, I know where it is. There are people that are really freaking out, looking and going, our recruiting class is not good as compared to State, as compared to Alabama, Georgia, the big dogs. What's going on? And the natural reason is the dollars aren't flowing. I look at it like the dollars are flowing, but not to the degree that the biggest dollars are flowing. And I'm telling you, when you're talking about hearing that quarterbacks are making $1 million, $2 million, you're not hearing that coming out of Michigan. You're hearing that these athletes basically have their deals set up in violation of the rules, and you see videos kind of openly saying, hey, we're recruiting this guy's going to Texas Tech because of this and that. You're not hearing that from Michigan. They're kind of keeping it above board like, hey, we're going to follow the normal standards that are out there, and we're not going to be out here flaunting our athletes with all this NIL type stuff. But it has caused a situation in my mind where perception is reality, where the perception is Michigan is not up to par, up to speed with NIL. And Michigan's come out and said, look, it's not as bad as you guys all make it. Stop panicking. Where are you at with it? Have you peaked at Michigan recruiting this offseason in the lull period of football?
It's as bad as everybody's making it.
It's bad, baby.
I don't know how you can come out and defend this. Yeah. You are so far behind.
What's the matter?
Every other school that is basically out there. The Big Ten specifically, I feel like, is behind programs like or conferences like the SEC. Michigan itself, it's because they have this overinflated self-worth where
shut the fuck up.
Yes, pretty much. Where they feel like they're better than everybody else, right? So we have to do it a right way. We have to do it the Michigan way. No, you don't. You don't. These rules were put in place because everybody had a bag man. Everybody was paying kids. Just go out there and figure it out. It's okay. You've got one of the richest donors in Stephen Ross who basically just writes you checks to write you checks. Go fund something and bring an actual powerhouse to the University of Michigan. Put him on the field. Let's see what happens. I mean, you've got Matt Ishbia and all of his UWM money. He's trying to buy up the Denver Broncos and trying to buy up different football teams. You got that guy basically lacing checks to MSU. You've got other MSU donors just cutting checks. Just take the money and just give it to the players and just do what you have to do. Obviously, do it within the letter of the law, but don't hold yourself to this unreal standard oh, we can't do this. We're Michigan. Get the hell out of here. Name, image, and likeness. Let's go. I'm gonna put. You're gonna sit there and you're gonna help me sell some cars. Let's go. Here's a Bentley for you, and here's $100,000. Exactly. Come play football.
As opposed to Michigan State, where their guy is saying, we are formulating this for the intended purpose of paying each and every football player this much money. So it's very interesting to see, and we'll keep monitoring it as recruiting takes place. And it's just a wild, wild scene now with college athletes and their ability now to say, Big Ten, you said you're making $1 billion on this deal. Okay. This might mean some more ample opportunities for us in getting some money in our pockets. So it's going to see, this is not the reverberating effects of all this money flowing into college football is going to produce some very interesting storylines, and we'll monitor it here at the Detroit Sports Podcast. Now, got to change direction. The Detroit Red Wings, they got their guy. And in the end, we talked about it. Steve Yzerman, like everybody else, you go with what's familiar. Now, we can debate, because I know not too many people will criticize Steve Yzerman, but we'll ask the question, which is what we're prone to do. Passed on Barry Trotz. We don't know exactly the level of interest that was there. Trotz has turned down other opportunities in markets that he might be favorable in to potentially lay low and maybe receive compensation because he got fired. But the Red Wings went in a direction that is favorable to most, in that Steve Yzerman is very familiar with Derek Lalonde from Tampa Bay. And I think we put two and two together that, in essence, he was waiting out the Tampa Bay Lightning and what they were doing. And that's what he did. This is the guy. And while he doesn't have a lot of experience, he was around a lot of experience and has been really at the forefront of the highest levels of hockey over the past 5 years. And Steve Yzerman is familiar with him, wants to work with him, wants to take the Red Wings to the next level. And I think I liked what I heard in the presser. He said, look, we got to keep the puck out of our net. We got to be more consistent. We got to figure out ways to play a lot better in certain areas. And I think just a different voice in the room who the players respect. I mean, he walks in the room with instant cachet. He just walked right off the ice, in an unfortunate loss in the Stanley Cup final, but he's hoisted the Stanley Cup. He's been around it. So everyone knows, okay, this is Yzerman's hire. You're not going to bullshit around and be like, well, this is Blashill, no credibility, this is a bum. You can't get away with that because Yzerman's going to support Lalonde in every manner, shape, and form. So I'm okay with the hire. Absolutely, it's an A hire. Could it have been better with more experience? You can make that argument. But for me, I'm happy with it. I'm still trusting Steve Yzerman what he does. But you have to say, this guy does not have a lot of head coaching experience, all of 0 games behind the bench as the guy. But as the assistant, as the guy doing a lot of things, he's got a ton of experience. Worked with John Cooper. So by and large, you can't really knock it too much.
In the NHL, I think you need to put the caveat on what you're saying in the NHL. Because
the biggest league in the world.
He has won at every level that he's been at.
Yes.
But I am kind of in lockstep with you, right? I would have much preferred a guy like Barry Trotz, right? A guy who has been there, done that. A guy who walks in and
hoisted the cup in the league.
Right. Has that, like you said, that instant cachet. Now, Lalonde has done this at the highest level as an assistant head coach. He's lifted the cup twice. He's a guy who has respect around the league, and that's great. The one thing that I think is a huge deal for him specifically is he sounds like he's more relationship driven. He's a guy who's going to come and he's going to hold you accountable, but he's also going to have that conversation with you. He's going to be like, look, this is what I'm expecting from you. This is what I need. This is what I want.
Indeed.
I feel like with Jeff Blashill, as kind of things started to unwind a little bit, as things kind of to really kind of fall apart, like you said, a new voice in the room. I think his voice was falling on deaf ears because a lot of these guys played with him when he was in Grand Rapids, and now they're playing with him here in Detroit. And at a certain point, you're just kind of like, yeah, okay, coach, whatever. I'm good. Yeah, whatever, coach. Like, obviously, this isn't working, coach. What are we doing? Why aren't we doing something different, coach? And it kind of becomes one of those things. Once the room loses faith in you, it's all over. It's done. So I think a new voice comes in. This is a guy who has talked about what they went through in Tampa Bay. And in one of his press conferences, he was like, look, the team didn't actually start winning and they didn't start playing defense until everybody in the room bought in. So he knows what it's going to take. It's going to be interesting to see how long it takes him to get this team there. But I applaud the hire. We both had talked about it multiple times. With the longer and longer this drug on, it really seemed like we were going back to Tampa Bay. I really thought that they were going to try to go steal John Cooper. I thought there was going to be a trade for Cooper.
That's what I think we need in Detroit is to just get the best guy. Because look what happened. You get Larry Brown, had such experience. Scotty Bowman, widely regarded as one of the greatest of all time. That's what it took. Jim Leland won something and was on the precipice. So that's what I think in Detroit is what I look at is for the Lions is to say, why don't they just go out and get the guys who've done it? Like, go out and get Les Snead. Go out and get Sean McVay. To get the team that's actually done it, not the guys that worked under the guys that did it. Because in the end, unless you've done it, you have not been in the fire. You've been around it. You've seen it. You've been there. But until you were put in the seat and have that experience, and it's because Detroit is a market.
What do you think Tampa Bay would have required to get John Cooper?
It would have been and plus
it would have been a fortune.
And why would he come? Why would he come for another 2 years of waiting? So it's obviously for Lalonde, it's the perfect scenario. Your first gig is with the Red Wings with the guy who you know and is Steve Yzerman. So there's no problem. But in essence, what I'm saying is peeling it back. Because Detroit is not really a free agent destination for all the teams, you say, what's it going to take? And what has been shown is when the teams got the best guys, things were maybe done in a way that was a little bit more closer to championships.
It became a little bit easier when you got either a coach that was well-respected or you got players that other guys wanted to play with.
Exactly. Is this guy just, in the phrase we've used a lot, just the stopgap before we get John Cooper? Well, you know what I'm saying? Get the program going in the right direction. Yeah. You remember because you're an avid hockey guy, the Wings kind of were in that mold with Jock Demers, with the likes of all the other guys who failed, and they started making noise. The series loss against San Jose, they start doing some things, and then all of a sudden, boom, okay, we're at that point. We broom them out because we got Scotty Bowman, who's won cups everywhere, and he's a hard ass. So, there's that notion that, hey, you hook a guy up, give him a job. You might not believe, okay, if you strapped, Yzerman to the lie detector and gave him some booze, say, okay, do you believe this guy's going to win? You might say, well, look, we want to get from point A to point B, and then when we go from point B to point C, then I'll get John Cooper. You know what I'm saying? It's like, he's not going to come out and say, I got my stopgap, but I think you got your guy that can now take you into the postseason. And, when we speculate, you say, okay, can this guy take the Wings beyond the first, second round? I think this guy's going to have playoff success. I can't wait to see how he looks, how his team looks when it's crunch time. You're down 3-2 in the postseason. Do you have those special comebacks? Do you tighten it up? Do you make those adjustments? I'm looking ahead a little bit. Me personally, I would love it if he could just kind of be that guy. If his ceiling is get the Wings to the postseason, couple series wins over years, heartbreaking losses, and then you wait for the next guy, I'm down for it. I'm down for that too. That's a successful run.
How do you feel that this rebuild for the Detroit Red Wings is
too
going?
slow? It's too fucking slow. You know what I mean? I've watched 5 hockey games in 2 years, and you're waiting because obviously my notion was I formulated 2 years ago. Jeff Blashill isn't it? And then you watch this past season, they reach a certain point by the All-Star break, and then they fall off the map. It's too slow.
Right, but again, this is what is similar about baseball and hockey. And we're going to talk about baseball here.
Fucking ruined the game.
Well, we're going to talk about baseball here shortly, but it's one of those things where it's a bit of a waiting game. Like you draft these guys, and they have to mature. And yeah, sometimes it takes a little bit longer than you really want. And I get what you're saying. I totally understand what you're saying. But do you remember on my Facebook memories, there was a memory that popped up where we interviewed Darren McCarty. I think it was about 6 years ago, and it was about Mo Sider.
Yeah.
And you remember the outcry for them drafting Mo Sider? Nobody could figure out why the hell they drafted Mo Sider. Mo Sider just won Rookie of the Year. That was 6 years ago. No, 4 years ago. 4 years ago?
I believe. Well, I'll look it up when we drafted him.
I don't know. Whatever it was like right after that draft. I think it might have been 4 years ago. But like, put that into context, right? Steve Yzerman's been on the job now for I think 4 years, maybe 6 years. I don't remember what the
2019 draft. So about 3-4 years ago.
Okay, so about 4 years ago, and we're interviewing Darren McCarty about it, talking about it because everybody is panning the draft pick.
And Mo Sider's only 21 right now.
And that's the thing.
And 4 more years until he hits the peakness, the peak.
See, so it's just one of those things where it takes time. And like Mo Sider, everybody bagged on it and everybody hated it. This dude just won Rookie of the Year this year.
Yeah.
It takes time, and that's what sucks about hockey. It's not like basketball. It's not like football, where you get drafted and you're put right into the league, and you're expected to make a difference. Like you're not. There's not a Cade Cunningham in the NHL draft, right? Where you're just going to grab him, plug him in, and now he's going to go. It doesn't necessarily always work like that.
The draft luck didn't fall their way when they had the opportunity to have the number 1 pick and get some guys that are like Steve Yzerman, generational.
Right.
You're picking a lot of guys that have a lot of upper echelon talent, but you're not getting the guy. You're not getting the number 1 guy that's like, okay, this guy's coming in 3 years, he's going to score 50 goals, and to see that immediate impact. There have been those guys, but they're usually at number 1, number 2. By and large, the majority have been stock them away for 5 years. And this is great for general managers. That's what I said on our Twitter page at Detroit Podcast and in a recent article as well, is this is great. These general managers come in hockey. Oh, we got these guys. It's going to take time. You remember when Ken Holland said rebuilds take 10 years? He was lampooned.
We laughed at it.
We laughed at it, but he's actually right in the general scope of things. These general managers have said it perfectly. In hockey, you say, you know what? It takes time. It takes time, guys. Relax. Well, okay, I got you. But you still got to make some key decisions on Larkin. I do want to ask you this before we switch gears to what Chris Ilitch said at that same press conference. I'm hearing whispers, lots of rumors, a lot of smoke. Wings might be wanting to trade Tyler Bertuzzi, maybe to Toronto.
Yeah, I heard that too.
I'm like, what's the scope there? What's the deal? I mean, I'm not really fond of trading guys that score 20 goals and have a little bit of grit and some of that personality you want on your team, but that lends to some noise that maybe where there's smoke, there's fire. Is this a good idea? Worth it to maybe part ways with a guy that maybe upset the apple cart in certain ways by his decisions, not getting the vaccine, kind of not being the team guy? I'm like, wait a minute here. Is something going on here behind the scenes that we're not exactly knowing about? Tyler Bertuzzi might be an asset. and you want to ship off a guy that can put the puck in the net and is a little bit gritty. Interesting noise that you hear.
30 goal scorer last
30 goals, exactly.
Scorer. And he obviously didn't play a full season because he couldn't go over to Canada. Played only 68 games.
I'm like, no, thumbs down on that rumor.
Yeah. So, I mean, look, I feel like Tyler Bertuzzi is the prototypical hockey player that you want on your team.
I want Tyler Bertuzzi.
Like, you want a guy who's willing to do some of the gritty stuff, some of the dirty stuff, a guy who can help you win a faceoff when you need it, a guy who can put the puck in the back of the net, a guy who can skate around other guys. Here's the thing. I don't think Tyler Bertuzzi's the most talented guy out there, but I think Tyler Bertuzzi is a hard-working player, and that's what you want. That's a guy that you want. Now, if you can get a guy who has Steven Stamkos or Austin Matthews-like skill, sure, obviously you want that guy, but those guys don't fall off trees. Tyler Bertuzzi is the kind of guy that you want. He's the kind of guy that you hope that you can stock your roster full of. Guys who can do a lot of little things really, really good. Damn near coming into his own at this point, a game player. Those dudes don't just necessarily fall off trees. They just don't. I would be really upset if they traded Tyler Bertuzzi. Honestly, he's one of my favorite Red Wings, and he's, like I said, he's a guy that I would be looking to help build my roster around. Dylan Larkin, on the other hand, there's a guy I can make a decision on. Can we trade him? What can we get? Let's go. I'm not a huge fan of Dylan Larkin. Haven't been since the day he started with the Red Wings. You know, when he was in in the Traverse City mini camp, I was kind of like, all right, whatever. And then next thing you know, he's called up right away, and everybody's talking. He's going to be the next captain. Lo and behold, he is the next captain. And at this point, I don't know if he'll ever get moved, but he's not my favorite Red Wing. Tyler Bertuzzi is a guy who I would much prefer to build my team around. Guys like Larkin sometimes I find lack a little bit on the defensive side. They don't go to the net hard enough. I have issues with guys like Larkin. But yeah, I mean, I would not. I've heard the same rumor, right? Sounds like maybe Toronto's trying to move that 8th pick. I mean, we'll really see what ends up unfolding here as we're recording before the draft. But Tyler Bertuzzi is the dude that I would absolutely keep. I would not trade.
Gotcha. It's going to be interesting to see the draft. Anybody that you would say, okay, once the draft hits, I really want. You target anybody? I don't think there's a goal that anyone really targets in the first round these days. Anybody that you say, oh, if we get him, I'm bouncing off the walls here.
No. I mean, again, it's really hard with the NHL draft to really predict how their future is going to unfold. I wish I could give you a name. Wish I could be like, hey, this guy right here, he's going to be great. You don't know enough about them. I've not watched enough minor league hockey. I was watching some of the Q, and I think it was the WHL. I was watching the battle for the Calder Trophy the other day, and it was really interesting. You got some really good highlights of the game, and it was a lot of fun to watch. But I've not watched enough. I'm not even going to try to bullshit you. I've not watched enough minor league hockey this year.
Absolutely, I love, and it's fun because we're recording live. Some big NFL news just broke. It's happened. We're going to talk quickly about what Chris Ilitch said because the media in Detroit did a great job of asking some tough questions of the owner of the Tigers and Red Wings. And but I got to get your sense first. When big NFL news breaks, very interesting. Baker Mayfield finally got dealt.
Oh, he got traded?
Traded. Official. Breaking. A new QB in Carolina per Ian Rappaport. The Panthers are acquiring number 1 overall pick, Baker Mayfield from the Browns for what round pick you think?
Probably a 3rd or 4th.
Nope.
6th.
Conditional 5th round draft pick. Deals pending a physical. All parties split the financials to make it happen.
Okay, I was wondering how much money was getting eaten.
About $9 to $10 million.
Holy cow!
They did it.
Wow. You tell me, right?
Yep.
Would you not prefer to have Baker Mayfield here instead of Jared Goff?
That's a big question. No, I don't because
for a conditional 5th, and you're paying $9 million.
Exactly.
Oh, wow. Absolutely bonkers. You know what? There was a rumor that was released that Seattle wasn't interested anymore in Baker Mayfield. Wasn't interested in bringing Baker Mayfield to Seattle. So I wonder if that kind of pushed Cleveland to kind of get him out of Cleveland. That's nuts. That means you paid a fortune to basically bring Jacoby Brissett in as your quarterback because it doesn't look like Deshaun Watson's going to play at all this year.
Yep. So the news broke approximately 11 minutes ago. As I'm recording this, as we're doing this, I'm typing an article because guess what? Lions play the Panthers in Week 16. You think Baker Mayfield will do the job and be the guy? You trade for him, does he become the starter?
I think so. I think he goes there and hands down, he's your guy. And I think that's the guy that they're going to probably look to build around. I think Baker, I think it's going to be a good fit for Baker. I think that will work out really, really well for him. Again, if Christian McCaffrey can be healthy, that adds another weapon to his arsenal. I think you've got a pretty decent offensive line in Carolina. I think he makes a monster splash when he goes to Carolina, and I think he plays extremely well. I don't know if they get to the playoffs, but I think they're a 10 times much more competitive team with Baker than without. I think this is a team that I think Baker will end up re-signing there, and it obviously won't be for some type of crazy max contract where he's setting a new contract high for quarterbacks. But I think they end up working together, come to an agreement on a contract for probably 4 years, and I think he helps push that Carolina team towards the future. And I think they end up getting into the playoffs. I think he helps them win 2, maybe 3 playoff games. So I think that's awesome. I think it's really good for Baker, and I think it's really good for Carolina. I think he's a good quarterback, man. I really do like Baker Mayfield.
5th rounder, dude.
That's conditional 5th.
Yeah.
That's crazy. And you only got to pick up half of his contract.
Exactly.
Freaking nuts. Absolutely bananas. You teased it a little bit. You talked about how the Detroit media covered what was going on with Chris Ilitch. End up having a whole lot to say about the rebuild with the Detroit Tigers. I know you and I took it a little bit personal. At this point, I just kind of think Chris Ilitch either A, isn't paying attention, or B, just doesn't really care. I know he can't come out and he can't really lambaste Al Avila. Can't really come out and say, hey, Al has sucked at what he's done. But I really do feel like you can come out and take a stronger stance than what he gave during the Derek Lalonde press conference here. What was your initial reaction to Chris Ilitch basically sucking Al Avila's butt?
I understand the nature of PR, but all he had to say was, I'm disappointed. 2 words. How do you come out and say, I'm pleased with the progress?
Yeah.
Basically, it indicates that you're not reading the room at all. Like, that means you have no clue what the fans of your team are saying. You have no clue what podcasts are saying. You have no clue what your team partner's saying every day from 2 to 6, where Mike Valenti's coming out and saying that, oh my God, this is horrible. I don't want to watch. This is terrible. You have no understanding of the pulse of the fans. And I think that's what pisses everybody off. 2 words. I'm disappointed. And then you could say, even though there are things, here's what I'm looking at as progress. We got these, you can blow smoke up everybody's ass. All people wanted to see was that you care, and that you don't have to say, I hate Al Avila. You don't have to say that you're getting your list together. You don't have to say any of that. You just have to say, watching this, you guys heard me say the rebuild's over. This is crazy that this has happened. We've been besieged by injuries, but I'm disappointed, and we got to get back to the drawing board to get back on track. And then you start blowing Riley Green. You say his name 50 times.
Yep, I was going to say, there's an easy way for you to spin this, right?
Yeah.
I'm disappointed, but I really do think that the early injury to Riley Green kind of set this team back. I think what Al Avila has done by putting this team together, I think we're tracking in the right direction, because they've won a couple of games here. Teams actually hit the ball. The team actually looks like what I think we all expected this team to be going into the year. A team that is right around 500. A couple games plus, couple games minus. Nobody really expected a ton from this team, but you wanted to see progress, and you wanted this team to be in contention for a possible playoff spot. And the way that they started the season was absolutely piss poor. And that's what you could have talked about. You could have been like, I was really disappointed with the way the season started. I think we're tracking in the right direction. Bam. Done. And then you're right. You just go on to blow Riley Green and what he's meant for this team, and how Al Avila found him, if you want to put it on Al Avila for finding him. There are things you can do, and to me, it shows an owner who is completely out of touch, has completely lost basically base with his sports program, right? With his team. Doesn't really understand what's going on. Now, whether it's because Chris Ilitch is more passionate about the Red Wings than he is the Tigers, or whether Chris Ilitch actually feels like Al Avila is doing a really good job, I'm not 100% sure. But it does come across as he's totally out of touch, has no clue what the fan base is saying, has no clue what anybody is reading this team to be. I mean, you have articles coming out where there are other general managers that are absolutely crushing Al Avila regularly. Other general managers are like, we don't think that he actually has a plan. which makes total sense because nothing has really gone to form here. Nothing has really happened. You end up trading a guy like Isaac Paredes, and you end up getting Austin Meadows, who has to miss a bunch of games because he's got vertigo. So, I mean, it's absolutely, did I say vertical? What is that? It's like vertical and vertigo. He's got vertigo. So, obviously not doing well, but you got Isaac Paredes just mashing the ball down in Tampa. Like, these are things that shouldn't happen, right? You gave up on a player, and you got a player in return who can't stay healthy enough to even get on the field. So obviously, Tampa knew something. You didn't do enough research. You didn't do enough homework, and you end up trading away a guy who, if you probably would have invested a little bit more, maybe did a little bit more homework, maybe that bat could have came alive here for Detroit. Instead, you shell out a Brinks truck to Javi Baez, and you're like, hey, we're going to need you to play shortstop because we can't bring anybody up and do anything with anybody, and we're going to hope that you can hit the ball a little bit. And he's been a major disappointment this year. So it is absolutely frustrating to hear your owner come out and try to wax poetic about a team that has been a major disappointment all season long.
Do you think that, he is out of touch based on what he said, or did he just stick with PR to keep Al Avila happy and not blow him out publicly? Because
I think it's a little bit of both.
I think Detroit wants an owner that talks.
Yeah.
We don't like owners like this because it comes off as bullshit. Because how can you be happy with the shittiest baseball team that has only now been playing 500 ball with the advent of one player joining the team?
I mean, it runs completely opposite of what you get with the Tigers general manager. When he talks, when he does his weekly press conferences, when he does his press conferences after the game, he speaks. He's got no problem talking. I think Detroit fans want an owner to come out and be vocal, want an owner to come out and say something. But I think with this, I think it was a little bit of both. I think it was a little bit of PR, and I think he is a little bit out of touch. I don't think he actually understands or pays close enough attention to what's going on. I think he is kind of a bottom line, what are the numbers kind of guy. Doesn't necessarily matter what the results are. Are we making money? Are we in the black? As long as we're not in the red, we're okay. How much money do you need? Okay, I'm going to give you 65% of what you're asking for because it keeps us more in the black. He's that kind of guy to me. He's more about dollars and cents, and he's more about, do we have fans coming in and are they having a good time while they're in the ballpark because they'll spend more money? Not so much that they're here to watch not so much that they're here to watch the baseball game. And that's what I get from an owner like Chris Ilitch. Just dollars and cents. I'm going to protect my guy because my guy is basically doing the best he can do, even though Al Avila is really bad at his job, and I'm not going to throw him under the bus. And that's what I believe that entire press conference that surrounded the segment with Al Avila was. It
was disheartening because you can't be satisfied. You can't. You got to be a red ass. You got to get after it. You got to be like, I'm upset. I'm not happy. This has got to be something that you got to feel inside like deeply.
Now, when you got a manager like AJ Hinch who's awesome, and you've got some decent prospects on this team.
But are we overlooking his professionalism? Like, this is an owner that's rich. He's the son of an owner that was a little bit flamboyant. He's probably learned from his dad, and he's kind of taken. Look, it's just a disagreement of the philosophy. Like, Detroit likes real people. It's straightforward. Like, you don't have to be full on like all the way to the extreme where you're Jerry Jones. But you have to kind of give the people a little bit of something that lets you know that, hey, there's going to be change on the horizon. And you can't just keep feeding them bullshit PR kind of talk because look what happens. Nobody comes to your games. The talk has been negative. You pissed off everybody, and now you're getting called a horrible owner. You got to come out and say, I'm disappointed. I'm not happy. We've made moves that haven't worked out. Things got to change. And there's got to be a lot of differences that go on. So I'm terribly disappointed in his comments. I think it rang hollow, and I think it made him right now in the crosshairs of all fans of Detroit. He is not popular, and he's got to turn it around really quickly by just coming out and speaking a little bit more, too. Because when we hear you twice a year, and one of the first things you say is, I'm happy with the progress.
Al Avila's doing a great job.
And then Brad Galley, great question, asks about District Detroit, and he's like, well, it's not really much more to say than what we've talked about. So where we're at now with District Detroit is a bunch of drawings and a bunch of nothing. So that's not exactly what people want to hear from their owner, and that's where we're at. He's persona non grata around Detroit, and he's not popular at the moment. Let's see what he does to try and turn things around. All right, one final thing we're going to look at is the things going on surrounding the Detroit Pistons. And I had presumed that they may be a little bit more active in free agency, but they haven't. They've kind of avoided it by building through the draft. I am not as disappointed because it started to kind of, when you read between the lines and the tea leaves, when you draft some of the players that you did that are young, it kind of precludes you from spending money on DeAndre Ayton and the like. And then I think the Pistons got a little bit of bad luck because I probably believe they would have offered something to Miles Bridges, at least to put a little bit of pressure on Charlotte. But he went out and became the biggest boner in the history of sports.
Can we just talk about Miles Bridges real quick?
Boner move. It's the biggest boner move I've ever seen in history. I was sitting there, when you sit and talk to people, you're like, if I'm on the verge of making millions, a max deal, a couple teams that want me, how are you getting into arguments with people? Just smoke some weed and pass out. How are you doing anything of anything?
How are you the biggest asshole in the world and beat the shit out of your wife regularly?
Allegedly, yeah.
So, like, look, I just want to apologize to everybody who listened because I was like, oh, let's go get this guy. Let's go grab him.
We all said
it would have been a huge mistake. Yeah. Absolutely huge mistake. Miles Bridges is a total jackass for sure. It's a dude you'd like to meet and just punch him in the face a couple good times.
Yep.
So go ahead, continue. I'm sorry.
I can't. You and I don't understand that. I don't understand how on the precipice people don't do the easy shit, dude. Do you know how easy it is to just lay low, watch movies, and go somewhere? Well, if you know that you are not happy with your wife and you do those kind of things, then I would presume you just leave for a couple nights. You just leave. Your agent, where's your agent? Your agent's a partner with you. He's about to make 4% to 6% off of you. Miles, we're about to do this. Boy, let's go. Let's hit some golf balls. We're going to hit some golf balls, have a couple glasses of bourbon, and we have everything set up. You will hang out here, and I will call you and tell you, Charlotte gave you the qualifying offer. You got to have 4 moves ahead. How are you letting your boy fight with his lady? Like, I would have sent her off to Tahiti. Say, look, you take the kids, 3 weeks, you're good. We have a pretty much primo time, and then you get the contract because, bro, it's locked. It's guaranteed. Dumb. And it's now become a habit now with Spartan players, a little bit of aggression and some choices that are not the best for some members of the former members of the Spartan community. It's really disappointing, to have that happen in that capacity. But hey, tough for Miles Bridges, and hey, maybe the Pistons avoided one of the biggest locker room headaches of all time.
I mean, I think so. Yeah. I absolutely think so. But are you surprised that Troy Weaver hasn't really gone out and brought in any big name free agents? I mean, I'm a little bit shocked here because the moves that they made at the trade deadline, at the before the draft, they go out, they end up shipping off a couple of pieces here or there. They end up getting a massive amount of cap space. Next thing you know, they're bringing in the dead body of Kemba Walker, bringing in a couple of I guess role players, and it's just been a lot of low-key, low-level named guys. They haven't really made a splash in free agency, and it doesn't look like they're going to make a splash in free agency. Does that impact the way that you view this team going into next year? Because I think both of us thought that this team would have a named free agency, like maybe not a superstar, but you would have a guy who maybe was on the verge of being a star, add in some veteran leadership to really help kind of round out this team. And it doesn't look like that's going to happen. It looks like everything's going to get squirreled away maybe till next season for a big name superstar as far as the free agents go.
They're building to the draft. Patience, Grasshopper. No, I love the phrase that these GMs have come up with. No, we don't take shortcuts. There's no shortcuts needed. Like going out there and signing a guy to a lot of money is a shortcut. Presumably, you would nut up and give a guy money that's going to contribute to your team. So we presume that you would do your job. We know no shortcuts. We're going to build through the draft over the next 7 years. Build through the draft. And here's the thing, too, that has been put out there. We want to do this for long-term success. We want this to be so. The Pistons, the Tigers, the Lions, and the Wings are building dynasties. They're building all of them because you know why? In Detroit, they all do things the right way. No shortcuts. We all build through the draft, and as a result of picking so high over these years, we're all going to be the next Dodgers. We're all going to be the next Warriors. We're going to be the next Tampa Bay Lightning. We are going to be the next Kansas City Chiefs. It is in the cards. Why? Because the general managers are doing things the right way, and there's no shortcuts. So remember that, guys. No shortcuts, and it takes 8 years at minimum to rebuild. So, by the time, we're both 50 and 40, we'll finally have an opportunity to have a winning situation. We'll see. We'll see which one breaks through first. And realistically, one maybe will have some success. But hey, we'll see how these rebuilds go over time. But I do want to get your sense as well. Did you see the picture online with Kyrie and Cade Cunningham?
I did.
It sent people over. It sent people over the edge a little bit. It was good content, but people were like, "Oh no! Oh hell to the no! No! We don't want to see Kyrie Irving. It's not going to happen. It's not. He's going to go out to L.A. Kyrie Irving's not coming. But are you concerned?
Would you want Kyrie here?
No, it's not what you need. You don't need that headache. He's somebody that comes with a little bit of controversy.
He is a locker room cancer and a malcontent. Definitely wouldn't want him at all.
Not at
all. Like I seen the picture, I did get a little nervous. I was like, oh no. I don't want Kyrie teaching Cade anything.
Yeah, exactly.
If anything, I want Cade teaching Kyrie stuff. So, but I think you're right. I think Kyrie
What's
ends up
happened to Kyrie?
in LA.
Why is he like that? You think he just kind of went astray a little bit in regards to just money gets to you, or you get that little bit of success and you become a malcontent? Because that's really weird to kind of have Kevin Durant have you on the team and then he's not anymore, wanting to be part of the Brooklyn organization because of what's happened recently. And it just seems like everywhere he's gone, he's been a locker room cancer.
I mean,
what's going on with him?
You look at James Harden gets kind of pushed out of Brooklyn. Next thing you know, you've got Kyrie basically on the fence, opts back in to force a trade, and Kevin Durant's like, trade me. So I don't know if Kyrie Irving is basically the poison punch in the room. I'm not 100% sure. It kind of looks like it to me a little bit, but I think it's a little bit of what you said. I think a little bit of success. I think playing in the shadow of LeBron early in his career, I think that might have stunted some of his maturity and some of his growth. I think he always thought he was a better player than maybe what he was, and I think playing with LeBron covered up some of his inadequacies. And then LeBron ends up leaving and it's like, all right, here, you're a team now. And I think maybe he felt that pressure and he was like, I can't do this on my own. I think after having a season or two where he had to kind of carry the team, he was like, I can't do this. I need to go out. Ends up leaving. I think every place he's gone, he has either forced his way out or he has created such a shitstorm with either the fan base or the organization that he's vilified. And I think much like Kevin Durant doesn't do well when he's being vilified. On top of that, you had the whole flat earth thing, which kept him in the headlines. And then you had the whole not taking the shot, especially with how strict New York was. And that really, I think, put a divide in that team. And I think that maybe is where some of that poison punch came in between Durant and Harden and Irving, Kyrie Irving, where it just didn't necessarily work out the right way, the way it was supposed to. So he almost seems like he's a reality star, but doesn't have a TV show. Do you know what I'm saying?
Too much diva, too much talk, too much noise. I think when general managers get flack for having players on the roster, it's just he has talent, but and there's a new wave now of people concerned that these players want their money but don't want to play. They're not going to go all in for their team. They're going to say, "Oh, I got a nick on the finger, I'm out."
I mean, you've seen what happened with him this season. I mean, like he played like half the games, So yeah, I think that's a huge thing.
See, you and I have talked about that. Sometimes you do need guys like that with talent, but not to the degree where they're not going to play.
You don't need soft guys. I feel like he's soft. I feel like he's soft mentally. I feel like he is soft emotionally. And I think he's a little bit soft physically. Like, oh, I'm hurt. I'm nicked. I'm injured. It's always like you also have to realize he's already won a championship. So he thinks he's done it all. He's basically trying to just stock the bank account and plan everything for either the end of the season or for when his career is over. And that's kind of where he's at. That's a guy that you don't want on a young, hungry team because he's not hungry. He's super, super set. He's fine. And I would pass on him all day. Also, he's like $36 million against the cap hit. Like, who wants to take that on? I don't. As a Piston fan, I would absolutely hate that guy's getting paid that much money. You know what I'm saying? It would absolutely bother me because I just don't feel like he's worth it. And I know he's like a top 10, top 20 player in the NBA, but I don't want him on my team. And I think that tells you everything you need to know. When you can get a guy who is one of the best at his position in the NBA, and you're like, I don't want him. I don't want him on my team. Same thing with Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant's trying to force a trade too, right? You could trade a whole bunch of stuff from the Pistons. Go get your superstar. Go get Kevin Durant. I don't want him on my team because he's another one who's a few sandwiches short of a picnic basket. And he's extra soft mentally. Like that guy is Charmin soft. I don't need guys like that. I don't want guys like that. I don't necessarily think you can win with guys like that being a dominant mentality or a dominant force in your locker room. There's a reason that he was able to go to Golden State, and Golden State was able to win, right? Because in that locker room, it was Steph, it was Clay, and it was Draymond, and those were the dominant personalities in that locker room. On top of that, Steve Kerr, as low key as he is, he's a pretty dominant personality when he wants to be. So as far as KD goes, yeah, you were a superstar and you were part of this. But at no point did I think Steph or Clay or even Draymond allow him to really just kind of project and try to, I guess, use that negative mentality in that room. It was basically, look, man up. This is what we're doing. We're going to work. Get your hard hat on and let's go. And I think they held him accountable. And I don't think when he goes to the Knicks or when he goes to the Nets, there's nobody there to hold him accountable. Who's going to hold him accountable? James Harden? Kyrie Irving? No, none of those guys are going to hold him accountable. Those guys need to be held accountable. So, no, absolutely not. Don't want any of those guys on my team.
None of them at all, huh?
Nope.
Is there anybody that you think is complimentary that's a veteran that would have deserved max dollars? Ayton, I know, kind of fell out of favor, personality problem. Brunson went to the Knicks. I don't see anybody besides that in this year's class that maybe was warranted other than Bridges. Yeah, I don't see anybody worth the max dollars.
I don't.
Is it a pipe dream for just to think about Kevin Durant?
You could think about it. I mean, honestly, if they really wanted him, they could trade for him. They would probably ask for Cade, and you're going to say no, but then you're going to give them a shit ton of draft picks, and you'll give them a couple of pieces. But yeah, you can think about it. But like, do you really want a guy like that on your team? Do you really want that? Like, so you're going to give up all of these future assets for a season, maybe two. And if you're able to work out some sort of short-term extension with him, at that point, after 2 years, and it's not really going the way he wants it to go, he's going to force his way out. So then what do? You're kind of right back to square one. So hell no, I don't want a guy like that. But you can dream about it. You can think it's possible because it is, but I wouldn't do it.
At least it's good that, Cade is playing alongside and learning from as many veterans possible. It's not just Cade and Kyrie. There are others as well. So you look at it and you say, okay, there's opportunities here for some growth, and he's kind of looked a little bit puffier too. Looked a little bit stronger. Got some work in, and boy, I don't particularly pay attention too much to the summer league, but they're putting out their first and second year guys, and they have a pretty. If you look at their summer league roster, holy shit, it's almost worth it to watch. It's going to kick off here pretty soon, and I think it's worth it to watch because they're going to have a lot of the Pistons rosters made up of first and second year guys, and they're going out there. So I think the future, at least right now, is a little bit more hopeful, even though it's not as clear cut how this is going to go. Basically the moves are kind of being set in the foundation, but we don't see the aggressive move that we don't know exactly just how Troy Weaver's playing chess just yet. He does a good job keeping
I
to the
think
best.
it comes next year.
You see the move.
I see the move that galvanizes the fan base, and everybody's like, all right, let's go. Because you can already see the fan base galvanizing as a couple of these drafts have gone on. We're waiting for the other shoe to drop. We're waiting for that free agent to come in. And whether you got to overpay for him a little bit, we haven't seen it yet. And I think a lot of what you get is you get a lot of these little short-term deals, a lot of 1-2 year deals for a couple of guys who are bit players, role guys. And you're going to come in, you're going to slot in, you're going to do a couple of things. Doing all of that, you're allowing guys like Cade to grow. You're allowing some of your younger talent to take on more of a lion's share of the minutes and the production for this team. So they become more responsible. They end up learning from their mistakes. They see what works, what doesn't work. I mean, if you bring in, let's say you go out and you get a veteran point guard. Let's say you kept Kemba Walker, right? And all of a sudden Kemba feels like he needs to be starting and not Cade. Now you got a bit of a tug of war that you got to deal with. And if you're going to give minutes to a guy like Kemba Walker, right, as your point guard, that starts eating into his growth, that starts eating into his maturity. You could see a different player from the beginning of last year to the very, very end of the year with Cade last season. Now, you're going to hit basically the 2-time accelerator on that because he's coming in, already kind of knows a whole bunch from last year. He's going to now build on it. He's going to get better. So by the time the season starts, he's going to basically be 3 steps up, and then he's going to, by the time the end of the season rolls around, he'll be like 15 steps ahead instead of just being 5 steps ahead. So I think the way this is getting put together, and I think the way this is getting built, it's to help maximize the young talent that you have, to get them in a position where they are ready to win, and I think they'll be ready to win next year.
Oh, I can't wait. It's about time, man. We've been podcasting about rebuilds for so long. We need that final move, right? That final piece, that final, like, that part where, okay, now it's the stuff, we have the ingredients, now we're putting it in the oven, now we get it out and start to evaluate what's going to happen. Tigers are a long way away. This year for 2022 with the Lions, we'll start to see what it looks like. Year 2 with a lot of these young players, you'll start to see how Sewell looks, how the young cats from the last year's draft look, along with the rookies and Jared Goff. So I'm happy at this point in time a little bit more with the Lions rebuild than I am with the Pistons, Wings, and with the Tigers, because at least with the Lions, turnarounds happen a lot more quicker. And I think people are less patient because of the history of the Lions. They're not waiting. Campbell gets 3 years and that's it.
Absolutely.
There's no, and football lets you start playing 22-year-olds at a quicker rate. And I think this year will be the year we stamp our analysis and assessment of Jared Goff. So we're going to have answers a lot faster. 2 more years for the Wings, 2 more years for the Pistons, and a good 5 years minimum for the Tigers. So I hate to tell you, the Lions are where it's at, baby. And that's the content that we bring you the most at Detroit Sports Podcast and SI All Lions. So, man, that was good shit, man. That was good stuff going on. We've been enjoying the Nadal-Fritz match here on Wimbledon. It's been going down. A lot of good stuff going on in the world of sports. A lot of upheaval in the world of college football, and we're going to break it all down. It's been fun. It's been a good time. I've been enjoying the off season for the Lions a little bit more than normal, get a chance to get away from football. But now we're back in, baby, because Baker Mayfield has been traded to the Panthers. And guess what? Because Week 16, the Lions are facing the Panthers on the road Christmas Eve. So we'll see how it plays out because in a story that just posted what Baker Mayfield trade means for the Lions, last year, Lions defense got 2 picks off of Mayfield. Chubb, if you recall, carried the Browns. They just were able to punish the Lions defense in regards to the run game, over 100 yards, and Chubb bailed out Mayfield, who did not play particularly well. The Lions were able to get to him. So we'll see if Mayfield is under center. But your question's great and something that could be looked at further. Was Brad Holmes, and someone messaged us already, quick reply here. People are like, conditional fifth. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. You look at it and you say, a conditional fifth for a backup that could potentially be better than what you have. Mayfield's better than Blau. Mayfield's way better than Boyle. A conditional fifth. That's all it took. And you get to pay $9 million. And he has a tie. See, real quickly here, you look at the culture, okay? And obviously development and having it. If your culture is good, if it's really changed, there's no issue bringing in Baker Mayfield. Pay him $9 million 1-year rental. He's good. Goff goes down. You throw him in. You get maybe a chance to see. Oh, you like him? You get him in your system. You got John Dorsey. You got Brad Holmes, Dan Campbell, who's a player's guy. If he's a turd, you get rid of him. $9 million for Baker Mayfield and a fifth. It almost makes you go, damn, take a flyer. It would have been juicy. It might have been like the guy, like a little bit of that swagger that maybe behind the scenes, like, look, Baker, you're really not going to see the field a whole lot. But could you imagine Baker Mayfield and what he's been through? Kind of a little bit of spice with what Jared Goff has been through. Kind of those two guys could be like the comeback boys.
Could you imagine Baker Mayfield with Dan Campbell as his coach?
Yeah, exactly.
Like, I feel like that would be great.
Exactly. A little bit of like have somebody with his back, like, no, this is the guy. And at least if Goff goes down for a couple plays, it's not a complete wash. Conditional fifth is what it took to pull Baker Mayfield. I mean, that's a good trade for the Panthers. That's a good trade. And luckily for Mayfield, he gets out of that situation because the Browns are about to be in some sort of heat for the next year or two. Anyways, make sure you follow us on Twitter at Detroit Podcast. Follow Adam on Twitter at AdamRSTROZ. Podcasting time has come to a close. Anywhere, and I mean anywhere, everywhere you listen to your favorite podcast, Just type in Detroit Sports Podcast. You guys see it. Everybody is still doing their podcast. Everybody's broadcasting weekly. We knew this medium has been successful and is one of the funnest ways to talk about sports. It can launch careers. I tell you, start your podcast. Even though there's a million of them now already in Detroit sports, start one. See what you can do with it. They're very fun and enjoyable to do. We're nearing 500 episodes of this podcast, breaking down all the rebuilds in Detroit sports, and we'll be here continuing to break it all down on the Detroit Sports Podcast Network. Cuz, did we cover everything? Did we get everything we need to get out of this week?
I think we covered everything.
We unloaded everything. I feel good. I love it about this podcast. We unload and we get out all our angst every single week. And thank you guys for letting us do it. See you guys next week on the latest edition of Doc and Jock.